Let's share my screen. No, no, no. Let's start with prayers. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्ता राधाकान्ता नमस्तुते तप्तकाञ्चना गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे कङ्करोति वाचालं भङ्गं नगायते गिरं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनकारणम् Hare Krishna. So, uh, before I go to recap, I'll just would like to finish the reading first and then we can go more in details about the chapter. So, there are total 34 verses, and maybe three readers can read, and the last one can read 14 verses in total. So, yes, God Kumar Prabhu.
How many verses you said?
So, Prabhuji, 10 verses for first two people, and the last person can read 14 verses.
Okay. The sage Maitreya said, Lord Shiva was silent after speaking to Sati, seeing her between decisions. Sati was very much anxious to see her relatives at her father's house, but at the same time she was afraid of Lord Shiva's warning. Her mind unsettled, she moved in and out of the room as a swing moves this way and that. Sati felt very sorry at being forbidden to go see her relatives at her father's house, and due to affection for them, tears fell from her eyes. Shaking and very much afflicted, she looked at her uncommon husband, Lord Shiva, as if she were going to blast him with her vision. Thereafter, Sati left her husband, Lord Shiva, who had given her half his body due to affection. Breathing very heavily because of anger and bereavement, she went to the house of her father. This less intelligent act was due to her being a weak woman. When they saw Sati leaving alone very rapidly, thousands of Lord Shiva's disciples, headed by Manimam and Mada, quickly followed her with his bull Nandi in front and accompanied by the Yakshas. The disciples of Lord Shiva arranged for Sati to be seated on the back of a bull and gave her the bird which was her pet. They bore a lotus flower, a mirror, and all such paraphernalia for her enjoyment and covered her with a great canopy. Followed by a singing party with drums, conch shells, and bugles, the entire procession was as pompous as a royal parade. She then reached her father's house where the sacrifice was being performed and entered the arena where everyone was chanting the Vedic hymns. The great sages, Brahmanas, and demigods were all assembled there. and there were many sacrificial animals as well as pots made of clay, stone, gold, grass, and skin, which were all requisite for the sacrifice. When Sati, with her followers, reached the arena, because all the people assembled were afraid of Daksha, none of them received her well. No one welcomed her but her mother and sisters, who, with tears in their eyes and with glad faces, welcomed her and talked with her very pleasingly. Although she was received by her sisters and mother, she did not reply to their words of reception, and although she was offered a seat and presents, she did not accept anything, for her father neither talked with her nor welcomed her by asking about her welfare. Present in the arena of sacrifice, Sati saw that there was no oblations for her husband, Lord Shiva. Next, she realized that not only had her father failed to invite Lord Shiva, but when he saw Lord Shiva's exalted wife, Daksha did not receive her either. Thus she became greatly angry, so much so that she looked at her father as if she were going to burn him with her eyes. The followers of Lord Shiva, the ghosts, were ready to injure and kill Daksha, but Sati stopped them by her order. She was very angry and sorrowful, and in that mood she began to condemn the process of sacrificial fruitive activities and persons who are very proud of such unnecessary and troublesome sacrifices. She especially condemned her father, speaking against him in the presence of all.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Would anyone like to go next? Dia, please.
The, the blessed goddess said, Lord Shiva is the most beloved of all living entities. He has no rival. No one is very dear to him, and no one is his enemy. No one but you could be envious of such a universal being who is free from all enmity. Twice born Daksha, a man like you, can simply find fault in the qualities of others. Lord Shiva, however, not only finds no faults with others' qualities, but if someone has a little good quality, he magnifies it greatly. Unfortunately, you have found fault with such a great soul. It is not wonderful for persons who have accepted the transient material body as the self to engage always in derriding great souls. Such envy on the part of materialistic person is very good because that is the way they fall down. They are diminished by the dust of the feet of great personalities. Sati continued, My dear father, you are committing the greatest offense by envying Lord Shiva, whose very name, consisting of two syllables, Shi and Va, purifies one of all sinful activities. His order is never neglected. Lord Shiva is always pure, and no one but you envies him. You are in. Can you scroll down a little? Yeah. You are envious of Lord Shiva, who is the friend of all living entities within the three worlds. For the common man, he fulfills all desires, and because of their engagement in thinking of his lotus feet, he also blesses higher personalities who are seeking after Brahmananda, transcendental bliss. Do you think that greater, more respectable personalities than you, such as Lord Brahma, do not know this inauspicious person who goes under the name Lord Shiva? He associates with the demons in the crematorium. His locks of hair are scattered all over his body, and he is garlanded with human skulls and smeared with ashes from the crematorium. But in spite of all these inauspicious qualities, great personalities like Brahma honor him by accepting the flowers offered to his lotus feet, and placing them with great respect on their heads. Sati continued, if one hears an irresponsible person blaspheme the master and the and controller of religion, one should block his ears and go away if unable to punish him. But if one is able to kill, then one should by force cut out the blasphemer's tongue and kill the offender, and after that one should give up his own life. Therefore I shall no longer bear this unworthy body, which has been received from you, who have blasphemed Lord Shiva. If someone has taken food which is poisonous, the best treatment is to vomit. It is better to execute one's occupational duty than to criticize others. Elevated transcendentalists may sometimes forego the rules and regulations of the Vedas since they do not need to follow them, just as demigods travel into space, whereas ordinary men travel on the surface of the earth. In the Vedas, there are directions for the two kinds of activities: activities for those who are attached to material enjoyment, and activities for those who are materially detached. In consideration of these two kinds of activities, there are two kinds of people who have different symptoms. If one wants to see two kinds of activities in one person, that is contradictory. But both kinds of activities may be neglected by a person who is transcendentally situated.
Thank you, Dia. And anyone? Oh, Saraswati. Thank you.
My dear father, the opulence we possess is impossible for either you or your flatterers to imagine. For persons who engage in fruitive activities by performing great sacrifices are concerned with satisfying their bodily necessities by eating foodstuff offered as a sacrifice. We can exhibit our opulences simply by desiring to do so. This can be achieved only by great personalities who are renounced, self realized souls. You are an offender at the lotus feet of Lord Shiva, and unfortunately, I have a body produced from yours. I am very much ashamed of of our bodily relationship, and I condemned myself because my body is contaminated by a relationship with a person who is an offender at the lotus feet of the greatest personality. Because of our family relationship, when Lord Shiva addresses me as Dakshayani, I at once become morose, and my jolliness and my smile at once disappears. I feel very much sorry that my body, which is just like a bag, has been produced by you. I shall therefore give it up. Maitreya, the sage, told Vidura, O annihilator of enemies, while thus speaking to her father in the arena of sacrifice, Sati sat down on the ground and faced north. Dressed in saffron garments, she sanctified herself with water and closed her eyes to absorb herself in the process of mystic yoga. First of all, she sat in the required sitting position, and then she carried the life air upwards and placed it in the position of equilibrium near the navel. Then she raised her life air, mixed with intelligence, to the heart and then gradually towards the pulmonary passage and from there to between her eyebrows. Thus, in order to give up her body, which had been so respectfully and affectionately seated on the lap of Lord Shiva, who is worshipped by great sages and saints, Sati, due to anger towards her father, began to meditate on the fiery air within the body. Sati concentrated all her meditation on the holy lotus feet of her husband, Lord Shiva, who is the supreme spiritual master of all the world. Thus, she became completely cleansed of all taints of sin and quit her body in a blazing fire by meditation on the fiery elements. When Sati annihilated her body in anger, there was a tu- tumultuous. This is so difficult to pronounce. Tumult. I can't.
Tumultuous.
Tumultuous.
Okay, thank you. There was a tumultuous roar all over the universe. Why had Sati, the wife of the most respectable demigod, Lord Shiva, quit her body in such a manner? It was astonishing that Daksha, who was Prajapati, the maintainer of all living entities, was so disrespectful to his own daughter Sati, who was not only chaste but was also a great soul, that she gave up her body because of his neglect. Daksha, who is so hard hearted that he is unworthy to be a Brahmana, will gain intensive ill fame because of his offenses to his daughter, because of not having prevented her death, and because of his great envy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. While people were talking among themselves about the wonderful voluntary death of Sati, the attendants who had come with her readied themselves to kill Daksha with their weapons. They came forward forcibly, but Bhrigu Muni saw the danger and offering oblations into the southern side of the sacrificial fire, immediately uttered mantric hymns from the Yajurveda by which the destroyers of yagnic performances could be killed immediately. When Bhrigu Muni offered oblations in the fire, immediately many thousands of demigods named Rubus became manifested. All of them were powerful, having achieved strength from Soma, the moon. When the Rubu demigods attacked the ghosts and Goyakas with half burned fuel from the Yagna fire, all these attendants of Sati fled in different directions and disappeared. This was possible simply because of Brahma Tejas, Brahmanical power.
Thank you, Saraswati. Thank you, all the readers, for reading, and thank you all for joining. Let me share my slides. I seek all your blessings and mercy before I start delving deeper into this chapter. And I'll be very honest that this is not the best representation of this chapter. It has beautiful purports and many lectures and details discussed on this chapter, which I didn't go through. So I apologize for that. And again, whatever I'll be saying, I mostly refer to Varang Darshan Prabhu, Srila Prabhupada's purport, CCP, and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur Prabhupada's commentary. So this chapter, the overview is like the initial verses. Sati, Mother Sati, she leaves Lord Shiva, and then she goes there. She sees his cold response. In next 13 verses, she condemns him, and then she leaves her body. Then there is a great cry from the sky, and then Ribus, they all drive away Lord Shiva's attendants. And then there are deeper topics that are discussed when Mother Sati is condemning her father. So, just a quick question. So, Mother Sati, after hearing the words of wisdom from her husband, Lord Shiva, what did she do among these four options? Any one of you can just unmute.
D.
Yeah. So, Yeah, she was torn between obeying her husband or fulfilling her daughter's natural duty to parents. So the first question or discussion is like, how do we understand this conflict when both dharmas are scripturally valid? Like, she's a daughter and she has that inclination towards her parents. At the same time, she has this exalted personality as her husband, Lord Shiva. So, how does one, like, including us, like, even we are sometimes, we get engaged or involved in two conflicting dharmas. Like dwandas are also like could be one example of dwanda as well. Like, how do we deal with such conflicts? If anyone has any inputs on that. Mhm.
If no one wants to go, I can. Sorry, somebody was saying something.
I don't think so, Roji.
Okay.
Please go ahead. Yeah.
So, one thing to understand here is there is a hierarchy in scriptural injunctions. So, it's not that all scriptural injunctions carry the same amount of importance and same amount of weightage, right? This is not just the case with scriptural injunctions. Even so, this was very revealing to me when I heard Chaitanya Charan Prabhu in one class when he said that, even statements of pure devotees, the words of a pure devotee are actually hierarchical in nature. Not every statement carries the same amount of importance. There is a hierarchy of importance between them. So then, and then of course, the most important thing is for us as Vaishnavas is, love for Krishna, whatever helps us go closer to that goal, that is good. That is the highest kind of, smartavya satam Vishnu if smartavyo na jatuchit. Now in this particular case, yeah, I mean, one has to see. It's very individual also, in the sense that now Sati, yes, she has a duty to her parents, and then she also has to obey her exalted husband Shiva. But then she'll have to see, who is at fault here and whatnot, right? And then accordingly decide which dharma in this particular case carries more weightage, and then decide accordingly. That is one way, and then that is why you need a living tradition, a living person or persons to for us to be able to understand what needs to be done and what not. Just some of my thoughts. I'll let others add. I think Nitya Mataji said something, yeah, asking ourselves why we need to go. Yeah.
Mm. Thank you, Prabhuji. Yeah, I really liked what you mentioned about uh like following the pure devotees and why exactly, like, what the underlying dharmas and the principles. So yeah, Nitya Mataji, when you mentioned like asking ourselves why we need to go, could you elaborate more on that? Like,
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Uh,
Mataji.
so, so Sati, in the previous chapters, we read that, she was looking at her sisters, you know, all dressed up nicely and going. So, asking ourselves why we need to do what we are planning to do, right? Is it a borrowed desire? Is it because others are? Is it like a FOMO thing, like fear of missing out, or does it really need to be there um, when her husband's um, dignity and honor is at stake? um, yeah, like it is not like she was overflowing with parental I mean, like a daughterly affection or anything. That I don't think it, maybe I missed it, but it was not like that. There were many reasons why she actually wants wants to go. Um, and those were very external and very superficial. I think Lord Shiva also points that out uh,
Yes.
to some extent. I may be wrong, but somebody can correct me.
Yeah, that's actually right, Mataji. Lord Shiva did point that out, and the reasons that uh, presented, like she wanted to see her mother or sisters, they were more like external.
Yeah. So if the sisters are there, how can she miss it and things like that? So it was not really something that she, like she earned to do, or that was her life's mission to go, or something like that, or it was not even her dharma, you know.
Mm,
Now once, I mean, at least in those times, um, once we are married to another, married as a girl, as a girl in those times, you actually, yeah, dedicate yourself life to the husband and his family. I'm not saying that that will work for this day and age, but Sati, from being in that age, was also ridiculed because of that. And that was that was pointed out in many kind of later on, many commentaries from many people. I'm not, talking about our Acharya's commentary, but many were ridiculing that. Oh, see, Sati did that, went against the husband, and so she suffered like that. It was ridiculed a lot. Uh,
mm,
by many commentators, and even generally amongst people, it was very uh, yeah. I mean, I don't know where I was going with this, but I guess the point is that we need to really see why do we need to do what we need to do, and um, that will help find out, again, going back to the things about, okay, I need I need to have a sense of belonging. But what is a sense of belonging going to give her if her husband doesn't have that, was not given that sense of belonging, right? So yeah, so those things need to be addressed first, rather than just going by the superficial uh, mind level speculations and concoctions. Yeah,
mm.
be my
Very, yeah, very nicely mentioned, Mataji. Like the internal reasons and the commentary by other acharyas and how this has been ridiculed, like just based on the superficial reasons as well, and the mental speculations and concoctions. So yeah, Srila Prabhupada also mentions that in one of the purport, like how this was just an external reason, and internally she just wanted to convince her father. Like one of the reasons was she wanted to convince her father that it was useless to continue being envious of Lord Shiva, and that was mentioned to be her main purpose. Like Prabhupada mentions that. So she actually like went to fulfill like higher dharma in her eyes, like in the eyes, like her ultimate spiritual duty over family attachment. It might seem superficially as the family attachment. So taking a step back and just like looking at this scenario overall. So I was listening to CCP and he was mentioning that how a small conflict becomes big. Like this pastime is such a perfect example to show that how a small slide can become a catastrophe and how can we avoid those. So in this particular pastime, Krishna or Vishnu is not directly involved, and there's not even indirect intervention, like not specifically mentioned. Like most of the pastimes in Srimad Bhagavatam, they are about the Lord, or they are about how the Lord intervenes to protect his devotees. Like for example, the cantos, one canto above and below, like canto 3 is about Sankhya Yoga, like Sankhya analysis. It's about the analysis of material elements direct our own consciousness towards the source of all these elements. And then Canto 5 is about cosmology, and Canto 7 onwards, it's about more and more personal reciprocations by the Lord, like Narsingh Dev and Prahlad Maharaj. So, in this particular pastime, the question might arise, what exactly is the relation of this pastime with the purpose of Bhagavatam in general? So, purpose of Bhagavatam is to basically help Parikshit Maharaj, and through him help all of us to fix our mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. However, Bhagavatam serves those purposes like on multiple levels gradually. And in this section, Bhagavatam, it describes how through this dramatic and traumatic event that happened to Sati, how can we learn those lessons which can direct us towards the Lord. So the purpose of Bhagavatam through this pastime is to remind us of Krishna. Like sometimes it's through his devotees. Like we remember Krishna sometimes through his own pastimes, sometimes through the pastimes of his devotees, and sometimes, like in this case, it's by the activities of people living overall in the dharmic context, even if they are not directly devotee of the Lord. So Daksha, for example, he himself is very important devta, but he's not directly devoted to the Lord. He's more kind of punyatma. He's a pious soul, not a devoted soul. So, and Lord Shiva, he's one of the greatest devotee of the Lord, and him being followed by ghosts, like as seen in previous chapters, like from since the beginning, Soham Prabhu, he really nicely dissected the genealogy, and then Sindhu Kanya Mataji talked about Lord Shiva, like Daksha cursing Lord Shiva, and then in last class, Nandikishore Prabhu, he beautifully raised the questions of how the talks between Lord Shiva and Sati, and he dissected those sections of how, like, Lord Shiva's reasons not to go to the sacrifice. So, in a way, we could say, like, so far, by the interaction of Lord Shiva and Daksha Prajapati, is that it is kind of similar, excuse me, to Lord Krishna's pastime with Lord Brahma, because Lord Brahma, he could not understand Krishna, like how Krishna is, like in that pastime of Brahma Vimohan Leela, he could not understand how Krishna is eating the juta food of all the cowherd boys. How can he be God if he's doing that? So similarly, those who see externals, they do not appreciate Lord Shiva sometimes, and Daksha Prajapati is one of the examples in this case. So one thing that CCP was like mentioning, he was mentioning how tolerance, he brought in tolerance in this case, like how tolerance might have like not caused this entire situation at all. And I liked how he brought in tolerance, and he said that tolerance is calling off war with our reality. Like for example, if I say I'm sick and all my friends are enjoying this festival like Push Abhishek festival and I couldn't go, so as long as I keep resenting it, like for example, Daksha Prajapati, that resentment will hurt me more. And sometimes that reality of me being sick does not hurt me as much as the reality of that resentment of the reality. So Daksha and Shiva, like he was mentioning how this built up, like they did not live close to each other and they did not interact with each other. So the resentment of Daksha Prajapati towards Lord Shiva, it never came out, like, and like he was mentioning, in today's world we can say that they both were not in the same social circle, so they did not interact that much. So there are triggers and causes, and they are in both cases. Like even in Mother Sati's case, it can be seen, and beyond that, like before that, Daksha Prajapati, like there are some triggers and there are causes. Triggers are the events that set us off, and causes a lot of things that have already happened that led to that particular trigger. So CCP gave this example of a story where uh, like to understand the triggers and causes, what exactly do they mean. So he gave this example of a story that once a person, he went to a restaurant and he said that I want some idlis. So he ate one idli, he asked, give me one more, give me one more, give me one more. And then he said the fourth idli filled my stomach. I wasted my time eating first 4 idlis. If I had just eaten the fourth idli, I would have saved money, saved time. So, of course, the fourth idli was not the only reason for his for the satisfaction of his hunger, for his nourishment. It was the cumulative effect of all 4 idlis. And the fourth idli was the cause of hunger being satisfied by that cumulative effect. So, similarly, Daksha Prajapati, he had negative feelings. And he had, like in the past times, in the previous stories, like uh, covered that he had to get his daughter married. So he got that it was just one cause of resentment, but he already had negative conceptions for Lord Shiva. So when all of that happened, and similarly, like Mother Sati could see that resentment building up, and it was a cause of one of the trigger that happened in this chapter that led to the traumatic event in this chapter as well. So talking about like switching to the next topic now, like this we covered in the chapter that something that Mother Sati mentioned in context of Lord Shiva when she was condemning her father for having that resentment build and giving that cold response and not inviting him to the oblations of the sacrifice. So now the question arises, like based on the readings that we read, like uh, in the verses, what is the highest quality of a Vaishnava? If any one of you can unmute and just answer.
I think D again, seeing your insignificant goodness and try to magnify it.
Yes, awesome, Prabhuji. Saat karo. Yes, that's exactly like in text 12. She was mentioning to her father, like, Lord Shiva, not only he find no faults with others' qualities, but even if someone has a little good quality, he magnifies it greatly. Unfortunately, you have found, and she compares, like, you only found fault with such a great soul who finds no bad qualities in other and magnifies good qualities in them. So going deeper, so Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his purport to this particular verse, he brings in some terminologies and some levels of sadhus and person who are not sadhus. So in the mode of goodness, the sattva gun, there are some levels of being a good person or being a sadhu. Mahat is same as sadhu. We're going to look deeper into these terms in just a minute. And then there is Mahatara, Mahatma, Ati Mahatma. And then in mode of ignorance, there are some qualities or some traits that one possesses that takes them down in, that makes them fallen and takes them down in their spiritual path. So it starts from asadhu, and the worst is ati asadhutma. So sadhu is person who accepts even faults in others, since the faults can eventually be transformed. It's kind of like neem juice. That juice of neem leaves, it causes sickness. It cures sickness through, although it's bitter. So it's like seeing good. Like if someone is speaking harshly, so the example would be ki, even if this person is speaking harshly to me, they mean well, and it's for my own benefit. The opposite of that is like seeing apparent good qualities, but turning them into the fault. Like sometimes it happens a lot. Like the most common example is seeing someone donating something and just turning it into a fault. Like someone who wants to help others will become greedy for their own assets, or if someone is donating something to other, they're doing it for social media or for their own fame. Those are some examples. Then it's Mahatara, which is the next level of being a sadhu. So they overlook the fault and see the good qualities. So example would be that, like for example, the social media example, like instead of like accepting that, instead of like they're still too attached to social media, but this person is sincerely trying. They come to Kirtan every day. They have great sadhana. They attend every class. Their effort towards Krishna or spirituality is real and they are slowly improving. Opposite would be overlooking the good qualities and just seeing the faults. That would be that this sannyasi, he eats ghee rice to fill his stomach. He's so lusty and always hungry. He should be considered as fallen. Or this person, he calls himself a spiritual seeker, but he's always enjoying luxury, eating rich foods, and like enjoying life, roaming here and there. How can someone be so indulgent? So those, like, even if someone is great or someone is like doing his best in his sadhana, a sadhu tara person can just convert it into faults. Then there is another, like, next good level for sadhu people is mahatma. They take small good qualities and magnify them, not seeing small faults as well. So, for example, even though this devotee is facing many challenges in their services, they're still trying to make time for their spiritual practices. Their devotion is evident, and their struggles do not diminish their spiritual progress. So that would be an example statement of someone's talking about a struggling devotee. Again, the flip side would be taking those small faults, which can be easily neglected, but still magnifying them and then seeing no good qualities. So that's a sadhu atma. The example would be a statement kind of like, this devotee claims to be a serious, sincere devotee of Krishna, but they can't even complete their rounds. They do not have real determination. How can they even call themselves a devotee? So those kind of things, or even like, even somebody chanting or eating onion garlic would be like, or they are eating onion garlic, or they are indulging themselves in food like that. How can they even call themselves a devotee? Irrespective of them doing things that we cannot see. So, like, statements like this, they might come up. And the last, highest level of being a sadhu, uh, and space sadhu, is Ati Mahatma, sees good qualities in other where there are none. So, this is like Paramhamsa level. It's kind of like there are no bad people in the world and everyone is good. And for example, if somebody gave you a sauce in temple, for example, it would be like, you know them and you have seen them working hard. They are pure souls. Their harsh words might be Krishna's way of teaching me something, taking it like that. And the flip side again, that's Ati Sadhu Atma. That's the worst level of being a sadhu. So they only see fault. They have no hope or expectation of seeing good in anyone. So it's like, for example, a simple preacher giving heartfelt class. So Ati Asadu Atma statement would be, he's not even speaking for Krishna. He just likes hearing his own voice. So yeah, seeing just negative in this world, no one is good, everyone is evil kind of situations. So yeah, in context of what Mother Sati said for Lord Shiva, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he gave all these different levels of being a sadhu and asadhu, like good and bad. So now, based on these different levels, so there are some questions. I should have animated these. So the question like would start like starting to reflect on myself. Like, I consider myself a fault finder, still working on that. So some questions to ponder would be like, which lens do I personally default to? Like, we all have conditioning and we all have default settings. So what do I see first whenever I see a person? Do I magnify their faults or do I magnify their virtues? And how does this affect my ability to build trusting devotee relationships? So I can read all these questions first, and if someone wants to answer, or like, I do have some actual questions that among these questions that I do want to hear your thoughts on. And then, like, among the two mentalities of magnifying faults or magnifying virtues, which of those they nourishes my own bhakti and which drains it? What happens to my heart? Like, observing, like, what happens to my heart when I'm criticizing any devotee or even a non devotee or appreciating them. And then how do we distinguish? This is like this, I really like this question. Like, how do we distinguish between seeing good from being naive, and distinguishing seeing faults from being envious or cynical? Like, Daksha Prajapati could have said that I'm just highlighting faults, I'm not envious, and he could have just defended it like that. And the last thing that uh, I would like to discuss here would be what are practical habits that help us develop a Mahatara, like higher levels of being a sadhu, or even just being a sadhu, like having a sadhu vision or developing a sadhu vision without becoming naive. Like, yeah, that distinction between seeing good and being naive is really important, which I really would like to hear from all of you. Like, whoever can contribute, like, how do you try to actually see good and not getting fooled by it or not being too gullible as well? So, yeah, the first questions, I understand those are like personal and they might need some more observation or reflections to answer. But if you have any inputs for how, like, the methods or ways how you would distinguish between good and naive, and seeing faults and subtly calling those as finding envious. By the way, like, the different, see, different levels of sadhu and asadhu. Like, Nitya Mataji just texted something. Oh, Lekhaka, just 1 second. These are also uh, something that uh, comes into this technique of non-violent communication as well. When I was going through this, these reminded me of non-violent communication as well. And like, giving the benefit of doubts and seeing good qualities and magnifying those, and even like looking at these questions, it also reminded me of nonviolent communications. If you want to learn more about that, please subscribe to Nitya Mataji's channel. Yes, Lekhaka, sorry.
Hare Krishna, Nupur.
Hare
Sorry,
Krishna.
I've been a little in and out of the class today. But the third question that you asked, which is how do we not be gullible, is something that I've been working on myself as well, and I thought I'll just share, which you might already be aware of. Um, One thing is recently I got to know about of like an aspect of mine which is called I have a lot of misplaced compassion, and I've been reading a lot about that, and it's basically like you showing compassion on things where you shouldn't, like wherever you have to be stern, you have to be stern, and wherever you have to put your foot down, you have to put your foot down. And this actually happens to a lot of people who are empathic by nature, and it's very hard to distinguish if we are not trained on that. But as we develop awareness on our own nature, there are we can actually like understand where we are showing misplaced compassion. So there are very few very easy indicators. For example, when an incident happens and something goes wrong, do you immediately like blame you the first, or do you blame, or do you try to see whether someone else was also at fault and how can we constructively resolve that? So that's like the most easiest indicator. And when you always see that you're blaming yourself first, even though it is not your mistake, that means you might be someone who has a lot of misplaced compassion. And that's not healthy for us, that's not healthy for the other person. And actually, my manager mentioned to me that I have a lot of misplaced compassion. And then, like, I was like, okay, that's true. These are some of the indicators. So the steps in which I think we can understand whether we are being gullible or not is to first of all understand our own nature. Are you an empath, or are you someone who immediately tries to like uh, always tries to be perfect or always try to be right? Then based on our own nature, we can try to understand how we think about every situation. So everyday journaling, everyday reflection tells you whether how you were reacting to that situation. Were you being impulsive? Did you react or did you respond? That's like the second step to like understand. And then third is to know whether we are we are someone who likes to run away from the situation, or are we trying to solve it, or are we trying to be protective of our boundaries? And all three might be uh, right approach depending on the situation. But these three are like some of the steps that I've been trying to like incorporate, and I thought I'll just share.
Very, very well said, like Haka, like misplaced compassion. Yeah, yeah, that's an amazing thing to bring to the table. Like, uh, yeah, to catch that, it's not at all easy. Like to know that, yeah, it takes time and takes a lot of practice to know that. And you gave the example how can that be caught in some examples, like whom am I blaming when something happens? And when you were saying about that, it also reminded me of something that Sukhawa Mataji mentions, like among the four habits of human nature of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, there is one thing that we do the most among these four. Can anyone mention, like, what do we do the most among eating, sleeping, mating, and defending?
Defending.
Yeah, almost all the time. That's the thing we do the most among those four things. We defend a lot, and to actually catch us, if during even for the misplaced compassion, we can see while defending what are we magnifying. Are we magnifying our or somebody else's faults or virtues? So yeah, I really liked the points you mentioned, like Haka. Yes, checking out Kappa Prabhu.
Yeah, there is just something on the last. What are practical habits that help us develop a Mahattar or Mahattama vision without becoming naive? So, like finding faults in others, rather seeing the bad in others. Okay, that is one perspective to look at that thing, seeing bad in others. But another way to look at it is bringing out the bad within from within us, right? When we see the bad in others, that is actually bringing out the bad from within us, and that bad is critical mentality. And I guess one practical habit could be to avoid those situations in which bring out the bad within us. Now, again, I understand that it's not practically always possible to do it, right? And then again, there is the whole question of running away from it, right? So, is running away from situations that bring bad out of us, is it a flight response, right? Is that running away from the problem rather than facing it, right? So that is another discussion in itself. But what I mean to say here is situations or events that bring out the bad from within us, until we get purified enough to be able to face those situations, if we can avoid them to whatever extent we can, that helps. And and not just avoiding them coupled with trying to purify ourselves with positive Krishna conscious activities, hearing, chanting, reading. So when we really put our mind and heart into those things, so it purifies us. Ultimately, these practices, they are scriptures over and over again. They talk about how these practices are so powerful that they drive away all the misconceptions within the heart and this and that. So there is no dearth of statements like that. So these things, the avoidance coupled with positive spiritual engagement can purify us to be able to face them. And then yeah, whenever we are in that situation, we'll be able to face and then curb our tendency to see the bad. And in fact, the best thing is we see the good and overlook the bad, right? Again, so this is again theory. In practice, there could be certain sevas where you do need to, like, some of us are looking for marriage prospects. So it is important to see something that can be a flaw, because it's really important to make that decision. So, but then again, we need to understand with what motive we are saying that it's not just for the sake of our own mental titillation, because we have to admit that finding faults, that gossip, it gives some kind of titillation to the mind. It gives some kind of enjoyment to the mind, right? But that's like the Krishna says in the Gita, right? Something that is like what is that? Nectar in the beginning and a poison in the end. So it is something like that. Gossip and too much criticality is something like that. Anyway, some of my thoughts, I jumped everywhere with this, but yeah.
Yeah, nicely mentioned, Prabhuji. I like the journaling point as well. Like like introspecting, like what, why, and regarding the faults topic, like something that Nitya Mataji and Gautama Prabhu they keep mentioning to me. Like I really like that point. Like sometimes when I get too much analytical, they do remind me like to know that nobody is perfect and everything is imperfect. Like it is, and like nobody is perfect and everyone has flaws. I have flaw if I'm looking flaws, so having that having accepting that reality that I do have faults too. And yes, one thing is that, and I would say like regular association with mature devotees or advanced or senior devotees who can help you to identify that when you are actually fault finding and when you are just naming it that I'm seeing faults or flaws instead, like superficially you're just mentioning that yeah, I'm just doing it for betterment of myself or the environment or for the relationship, but underlying factors are different, underlying needs are different. So yeah, having that association or having that spiritual guidance or I feel might be helpful. And something that again Nitya Mataji has mentioned so many times in our NVC Krishna House programs, assumption of innocence as well, like giving that benefit of doubt to the other person and not just looking with that uh, critical and analytical microscope. And yeah, like those were some points I had with me. And something that I went through in some articles was like appreciative vision. It softens the heart, while fault finding, it hardens the heart. And Krishna likes the soft heart. He likes the uh, butter heart. So yeah, I felt that like this entire section is so much teaching about that internal purification through different visions and how to distinguish in those different visions. Yes, Manan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Very nice questions.
Krishna.
I was so a few thoughts in my mind. Um, when we say seeing faults, I was making a distinction between dwelling on faults versus noticing a fault. Um, and I wonder the Mahatmas or the Ati Mahatmas, um, if they don't even notice a fault. Um, for example, if somebody is not playing Kartal properly and is spoiling the Kirtan, and they notice that and they correct it, oh, please don't play the Kartal like this, or give it to someone else or something. I've been on the receiving end for this, but to me it seems like that's the part of the service as a Kirtan leader to do that. So if it's a fault and they have to see it and they have to correct it. Um, and so maybe seeing faults means so that's why I was thinking about seeing faults as dwelling on faults, but happy to hear from other devotees how they understand it. And regarding the first question, what I was thinking is um, it seems that the people who I feel some compatibility or affection or friendly with, I magnify their virtues, and people who I may not like so much, I may magnify their faults. So it seems to be person dependent. And And I think when I see myself dwelling on some faults, that is a clue for me to look into. Okay, what is it um, that's bothering me about this person? That I'm seeing more of their faults, or I'm thinking more about their faults in my mind, or and so on. So I recently heard something that Bhaktisiddhanta, when somebody comes to him and he was pointing out some mistakes in another devotee, he said that I have to see faults because I'm a guru, but why do you have to do that? It's a very painful thing to see some faults in others, and it's always disturbing the heart. So why do you have to disturb? You don't have to do that. So why are you, unnecessarily punishing yourself by seeing faults in others? Which helps me think that whenever there is some faults that I find myself seeing in others, it's a very big clue to look deeper into what's going on. Either there is some enviousness, some desire to see oneself better than others, or there is something which is disturbing my mind. Because there is no reason, unless one is a parent or one is a teacher, one is responsible, then one may have that service and they have to do that. But otherwise, whenever there is some fault that's disturbing me, that's always a great clue to look deeper into, what's going on underneath.
I just had one thought on that, Prabhu, and I think you
Mhm.
answered the question itself, Manan Prabhu.
Oh, really?
So Uttama Bhaktas, they actually don't even see the fault of others
Mm.
because within themselves they don't have any faults. So if they don't have absolutely any trace of fault, then they will not be able to even see the fault of others. That is why it is said an Uttama Bhakta cannot preach also. That is why they have to come down to Madhyamadikari, and then
Mm.
only they'll be able to see faults and then tell them that this is your fault and then make them grow. So that is something that I've heard in lectures.
Yeah.
So I hope that answers your first question. And the
Yeah.
second one, was that related?
So I have also heard that, but in that Kirtan example, for instance, so you think they will not even see that somebody is
They won't.
playing
They
the
won't
guitar?
because they'll just focus on the holy name. That's it. If somebody's playing Kartal, Kirtan, whatever tune, it won't even affect them. They'll be in bliss. They'll be completely in bliss, relishing the holy names. It's only the Madhyamadikari or the Kanishta Adhikari who will start, looking at these things. Oh, this tune is not okay. That tune is not okay. He's not playing Kartal properly, like things like that. So that's
But
my understanding.
is it not that it's spoiling the offering to the Lord? Uh, like when they're
How do you
doing
know that
video.
the Lord is not enjoying it? I mean, it depends on, like, yeah, how can you say that the Lord is not relishing that person's kirtan?
So like in
Is
DD
Lord
also,
looking for that
they-
particular tune? And
Mm.
it's very hard to understand this from our limited understanding. Yeah, Jagannath Gopal Prabhu wants to say something.
So this exact Kirtan thing happened. We were in ISKCON Chicago, Kishore Kishori temple. Myself, Anuradha Preeti, Prithu, and Anuradha Preeti's mom, and Anuradha Preeti's cousin. So we were in the temple, and it was a very short visit. We just wanted to take darshan of the deities and then leave. So the darshan opened, and Prithu. So I started playing mridanga. We wanted to do a little kirtan, and Prithu took the kartal. Now, Prithu, he doesn't know. I mean, he's a kid. He's just a 3-year-old kid. How would he know how to play kartal? But then we always encourage him. If he wants to play something, we just let him play. Whatever it does not fit or anything. So the pujari, after like 2 minutes, he looks down at me and Anuradha, and he says, "Please don't let him play kartal. The Lord is getting disturbed." Okay, this is what he said. And that sort of angered me a little. I was about to ask him, is that disturbing the Lord or is that disturbing you? But then I didn't want to, start like a thing there. So then I just thought, okay, forget it. But then Prithu's face became very small. Like he literally, he lost his composure, and he was very sad about it. And then, of course, we then left and we had to console him and everything. He was okay later. But then, yeah, I was thinking about that. And to your point, right, Gaur Kumar Prabhu, like, we don't know, as you mentioned, maybe the Kishore Kishori, they are accepting Prithu's faulty Kartal playing, I mean, so-called faulty Kartal playing more than my, in tune Mridanga playing. You never know, because Prithu might be doing that with an innocence of the heart. And ultimately, Krishna sees that. So it's tough to say. And one thing about that, Manan Prabhu, that you brought out the point about noticing faults and finding faults. I think on a sadhaka level, noticing faults is like a juncture in one sense, because we will notice faults, but then it's a juncture in the sense that we have two pathways from there. If we dwell on it, then the pathway of starting to find faults is where we go. So if we notice faults and then we keep dwelling on them, then we'll find ourselves finding faults after a while. But on the other hand, if we notice faults and then we try to overlook them or try to see the good, then we go to the in the other direction of progressing further. Just something I was thinking about it. uh, yeah, I don't know if that makes sense. It's theory, but again, in practice it takes a lot of iterative improvements. Like every time we notice faults, then we sort of try to see the higher principle there, and not I mean, I've myself fallen into the trap of dwelling on faults. Even still I do. So that's why I'm saying that it's an iterative process, and it needs to be done year after year, decade after decade, for us to be able to go from noticing faults to not even noticing faults, I guess. So
Yeah, well, thanks. That makes a lot of sense, and I think I understand the example of kirtan also. And yeah, I can see that when devotees may do that, they may be coming to a madhyama platform to correct somebody who may not be playing it with proper consciousness and so on. They may be doing that, but um, yeah, I can definitely see that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you all. Thank you, Manan Prabhu. Those were great questions. And this topic is large, like knowing the difference between finding flaws and dwelling on those flaws. And it also very much depends on who is like highlighting those flaws and with what intention. Is it to bring you down or is it to help you? So the intention matters a lot, and the words they use, they also matter a lot. And yeah, this is again something that is highlighted in nonviolent communication as well, like the way it is being spoken. Is it being spoken as a judgment or evaluation, or is it being spoken as an observation? Like even Kartal thing, if said really nicely or politely, that I am observing that you're not playing, like I don't know, like Nitya Mataji would be able to uh, tell it in a much better way. Like how can things that are not setting well, not necessarily faults, I don't know if I would call those as faults or flaws, they're just temporary things. Yes, Jagannath Gopal Prabhu.
just a quick thing. The Pujari, I understand that it was not rhythmic what Prithu was playing, but maybe if he would have said, to Anuradha that, Mataji, can you please help him play it properly?
Mm.
That would have changed the entire narrative. Then I would be like, wow, But anyway, this is my fault finding here at play as well. So bearing that in mind. So yeah. I don't want to find too much fault with that pujari who is serving the Lord directly and is dear to the Lord, of course. So
Yeah, it's all about, again, like this is like when I talk about NVC again, it's entire different topic and it goes way too deeper. Like it's all about needs. If I say like that Pujari might have different needs at that time, maybe of peace for himself or for the Lord. It may be like if we sit and guess who needs it, it will take like more than how many minutes do we have? I can't see the time. Yeah, more than 7 minutes. So yeah, and you might have, like as you mentioned, you might have different needs of being communicated nicely on that. So yeah, those things are there, and again, it all matters in what way it is being conveyed and what words are being used to convey those. Sometimes those things are temporary, but if not spoken nicely, they might just sting in the heart and just stay with us. And yeah, so these are some questions that we can think about later and reflect on those, like what are we doing when we are unhappy, or even in our default setting in a normal nature when we go out, do we see faults, or do we appreciate what we are seeing around us? Could be anyone, like eating ice cream or walking, like it's very easy to find faults and just dwell on those as well. I don't have much time, but yeah, I had another topic that I wanted to discuss. It was mainly for discussion based on what's going on these days, and what keeps on happening around us is blasphemy. So I don't think we'll be able to go in very much details about it. So yeah, just a quick question again based on what we read. Why was Mother Sati's anger reasonable among these four options? I gave it away though. Yes, A. Because he was insulting a great Vaishnava, which is Vaishnava Prad in itself, which is blasphemy. And yeah, Mother Sati, she saw that he didn't offer oblations to Lord Shiva, which was customary because he was one of those who are offered respects. But yeah, she was personally present and she saw that they did not even utter the mantra. And yeah, she was pointing that out, and she condemned that as well. In the purport, Prabhupada mentions further that the question might arise, but he was offering the respects and he was offering sacrifices. But again, if those are done without love for Godhead and without respect for Godhead, so no matter what sacrifices and fruitive activities are being offered, uh, but if they are done without but if by such activities one does not develop attraction for Vishnu, they are useless. Like those sacrifices, they do not do any good. And yeah, and this here, Srila Prabhupada, he talks about how blasphemy has been shown to be condemned in past as well. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has, well, in case of Jagai and Madhai, it was seen he became so angry when Nityananda Prabhu was offended by Jagai and Madhai. And when a Vaishnava or Vishnu is blasphemed or dishonored, one should be very angry, as Prabhupada is mentioning. Krodha Bhakta Dveshi Jane. So it goes further, like, again, the question might be there. Like, when I was reading, I had this question, like, why do some individuals, like, we sometimes there are people in the same association, while some they're able to magnify the virtues, and some they have those fault finding tendencies. So uh Prabhupada, he answered that, like, everything depends on the strength of the recipient. Like, the same sunshine, in that some vegetables and flowers they dry up and some they grow luxuriantly. I really like this purport. And he mentioned, like, similarly, it's the recipient, it's all of us, it depends on all of us while we want to grow or we want to dry up. And he gave the example of the heat, like that heat. He mentioned somewhere here, those who are offenders at the lotus feet of great personality dry up and their godly qualities diminish. A great soul may forgive offenses, but Krishna does not excuse offenses to the dust of those of that great soul's feet, just as one can tolerate the scorching sunshine on one's head but cannot tolerate that on one's feet. So yeah, I really liked how Prabhupada mentioned it. Now, how much time do we have? Uh, 2 minutes. Okay. I'll just leave it for the later discussion, maybe someday else. So I really wanted to discuss about the different blasphemy levels that uh, take place, different offenses, Vaishnava Aparadh that take place. Uh, there were some types like casual, like just without any evidence saying that this, for example, like just random examples, that sannyasi is probably after money and he's doing all those sevas just for money, or he's organizing this. So just leaving some random comments here and there without any evidences. Then there are institutional aparadh, that small mistake happens and it's blown up publicly, and the devotee is humiliated and given in the social media world. It escalates to very high level. And then silent aparadh is something that was being done in the assembly of Daksha Prajapati as well. That they could see that Vaishnava aparadh was happening in that sabha, but none of them said anything. And it's been mentioned in the purport, it's been mentioned in one of the words as well, that if one hears a blasphemy of a devotee, one should either just close their ears and run away, or just cut the tongue of the one who is blaspheming. Of course, Sati Mata couldn't do that, because since he was her father, so she just decided to give up her body. And then the final one, which is the most famous right now, is the digital aparadh, the comment section, YouTube responses, WhatsApp groups. That's the most common modern form right now. So I wanted to discuss this, like, what should we do when we hear criticism? Like nowadays, given the accessibility to social media and everything, it's so common. And yeah, like be it Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, more the social media, Twitter, more the uh blasphemy takes place. And again, it comes like we are doing better for the environment. So yeah, like blasphemy in this case as well, like if we take this example of this pastime, does good for no one. It destroys the speaker, whoever it is. Like in past, when Daksha Prajapati, he talked about Lord Shiva, about so it destroys the speaker as well. It hurts the listener. In that case, Sati Mata was listening, and it contaminates the entire environment as well, the assembly as well. So even with the real life scenarios, whatever happens, whatever blasphemy or the videos that float around, they do destroy the speaker, and they do hurt the listener, and they do contaminate the environment, whoever listens to them. So yeah, like for the sake of time, we won't be, because this is a huge topic in itself, and it will go in a different uh timeline, like when if we start discussing that. So yeah, just to like have some concluding points that I had regarding blasphemy, like why is it so hurtful, or why does it hurt our bhakti? It's like it creates anarthas faster than we are trying to remove by chanting. And it rejects, it fosters a culture of criticism, which is just increasing. And again, it, of course, it invites karmic backlash as well. So yeah, those were something. And yeah, I think, yes, Proji, I'm done. Thank you all for joining. Thank you for your inputs and great questions as well. Thank you for your patience as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you for so nicely preparing, Nupur. This was really amazing, very well researched and well prepared. And you brought out such amazing self-reflective questions. Actually, you can send a picture of that, those four questions on LOD also. Those are really, really relevant and really important for us as practicing devotees. Thank you so much. You did all this despite such a busy, last weekend we were in Vraj. This weekend was Vyas Puja. It was just constantly one thing after the other. So I really appreciate, and yeah, I'm inspired by how you did this. Thank you so much, Ma.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for all the help you offered. Even till the last minute, you and Gaurakumar Prabhu. Thank you for listening to my questions and responding to those. And thank you all of you, and thank you for Nityakishori Mataji as well too, for checking with me regarding this class. So yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Lekha Mataji says, fantastic class, Nupur. I missed the first half, but it's amazing to see your research and connecting the dots to current day. Absolutely.
I just want to mention that she started preparing only today for this class, and then in about 6 hours, she heard so many things: CCP's class, Gauranga Darshan Prabhu's class, and prepared nice slides, came up with these questions, made it very interactive. So it was very well done, Nupur. Amazing. If you had 2 weeks, I don't know how much more amazing it would have been. So thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, I'm not very proud of it, Prabhuji, for preparing on the day of the presentation. Yeah, Jagannath Gopal Prabhu, he actually told me on November 16th, so it's all on me that I started to prepare so late and procrastinated for so long. So thank you all for tolerating. And that's why I apologized in the beginning as well, that this is not the best representation of the chapter itself as well. So yeah, thank you for your kind words.
Saraswati, any thoughts on your dear mentor?
Yeah, she's just shocked. I saw her emoji when you said Nupur started preparing today. She's just in shock. How can this happen?
I was, because I'm like, इतना सारा एक दिन में.
A few
Yeah.
hours, yeah.
I mean, it might have been a day well spent. इतना मुझे पता है.
Yeah.
उसके लिए. Thank you for.
Thank you. Okay, Prabhuji. Okay, all. Let's end. Panchakalpatruभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. Thank you all for your time. Thank you, Lekha.
Hare Krishna. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.
Jai.
Srila